Welcome to the Time to Grow Up Dad podcast with your host, Chong. If you're watching this on a video, or even if you're listening to this on the audio version of things, you can see that obviously my background's a little bit different. Just moved into a new office space, um, which is pretty cool. The old office space has now been officially converted into the second baby's room, which, man, it's exciting. I don't know necessarily when this episode is coming out. I believe this is coming out in sort of mid-Jan 2025. So we're not too far away from the big day. We're not too far away from the big day. I think everyone's quite excited. I'm actually just a little bit anxious on kind of as my mentor Cliff said, going back into it's basically Groundhog Day again, with a newborn, at least for the first 2 months. So it'll be interesting to see how I'm able to keep up with those episodes there and then. But this episode is a reflective episode, as always, with my conversation with none other than the very, very popular Jiu-Jitsu grandma, uh, Miss Elaine. And there were a couple of key takeaways from the episode, which I thought was very, very interesting from my perspective, because I'm almost seeing life as a parent, quote unquote, coming out of the other end of essentially parenting. From my memory, and I edited the episode a couple days ago, the um she is 76, I believe, and it's in the episode. I'm pretty sure she was 76, but her kids are also 50, so they're a lot older than me, particularly, and she's obviously got grandkids. And it's so interesting to kind of have a conversation with someone who is essentially a grandmother, literally, hence her rise to fame, Jiu-Jitsu grandma, and how she's kind of managing grandmahood, not even just parenthood, but grandmahood, and kind of the things how she actually put herself in this position. And the very interesting here is that I know a lot of adults or grandparents who are her age or potentially even younger, 50 plus, who are grandparents, 60 plus, who I would dare say is not as active as someone who is of her age. She is such an inspiration to not just her generation, but the generation that comes after her, you know, uh, to really showcase that you can do a lot of things as a parent and set yourself up for extreme levels of success, from joy, happiness in life, as long as you don't give up the good fight. And one thing that she actually quoted, one of the big things that she said, I think a question was for me to her was, how do you parent someone who's like 50 plus? They've got, a good 50 years, and her kids. And I sort of posed the question to Elaine on how do you parent your kids who are going through perimenopause, because obviously she's been through it herself. And one of the things that she said, which I thought was such a good line, was suck it up, buttercup. And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of things in life where we can kind of look at it and go, yeah, there's these ways to think about it, there's easier ways to do things. But at the end of the day, like, when the going gets tough, knowing that if you stick with something and you come out, you will come out the other end. And to quote her again, like, suck it up, buttercup, it's like, it's so cool, because in the end of the day, like, you could do all the mindset stuff, you could listen to books, you could read the quotes, you could get coaching, but in the end of the day, you just have to suck it up, you have to write it out, you have to be consistent with it and stick with it for the long term, which is something that is kind of like very, very important to me as a parent, because as parents, I think we go through multiple periods of times where there's going to be different problems, where our kids are at different ages, from toddlers to newborns to toddlers to kindy, teenage, adult, 50 plus. You just gotta suck it up as a parent, because they are going to face different challenges, and you just have to be supportive and be there for them. Something else that Elaine also said, and for those who don't know, again, I'm bringing it up because I thought it was quite cool, is that for someone who's 76 to be able to do what she does at her age, not a lot of people can do it, but it isn't something miraculous that she's got amazing genetics. Maybe, maybe not. But one of the big things that she is able to do such things is because I think, from my point of view, there were two big things that she does really, really well all through her adulthood into her quote unquote her golden years. Staying active, no matter how. She says she lives on a farm, so she's as active as she can. And having a very childish mind, not like a very childish mind, but always being very playful, always having a very curious mind, always willing to try something. And I can't for the life of me remember the quote, what she said. And I know I posted it on the show notes. I think it was something about like never too old to try something new. Something along those lines. I can't remember the exact quote. I would have to bring it up again at some point, but that is such a great quote from obviously her own professor in jiu-jitsu that said that to her, in combination with the fact that she's always been so active for so long. Setting herself up for success at this age is what I personally inspire to be. I want to be that age, lifting weights, staying active, being able to drive a car without assistance. That's huge when you're 70 plus. And it is such a big thing. Again, I'm very biased, but it's such a big thing from my perspective as a health and fitness professional to always tell adults, look, you have to put yourself first. It's not that I'm asking you to work out 6 hours a day. You just have to stay as active as you can, live a healthier life. And even to Elaine's point, her doctor was shocked by the fact that she was able to reverse some of her bone problems just by going into jiu-jitsu and being as active as possible. This is someone who's at the age of 60 plus. We're not talking 30-year-old adults, 40-year-old adults. We're talking someone who's way beyond that. And that, I think, is so cool because she's able to keep up with her grandkids, which I'm sure for anyone listening to this, if you had grandparents and they were able to keep up with you, it was probably quite fun. If you had parents and parents are able to keep up with you, that was really, really cool too. But if you were probably that kid who had to go play with other kids, your parents never really partake in any of your activities and stuff like that, particularly physical activities, it can be a little bit of a, like a bit of a little bit bummed out. And she's able to do that not just with her kids, but obviously with her grandkids as well, which I thought really, really is awesome. And one of the big things and the big revelations that she also brought up, and this is kind of tying back to my previous conversation with Steve Kwan, check that episode out, as well as that be involved in your kids life in a way that if you send your kids to do something, and obviously the topic of choice here is jiu-jitsu because both Steve and Elaine are into jiu-jitsu, as a parent you should partake. And one of the big differences, at least in her world, living out in the States and here in Alabama, and out here for me living in Auckland, New Zealand, is that what I see a lot of parents do is that I don't really have the luxury yet. They send their kids to do some type of sport, be it rugby, touch, soccer, jiu-jitsu, whatever, and they just sit on the sidelines. The parents just sit on the sidelines, and they don't really partake. Weekend comes in, they send their kids to sport, and what do parents do? Go and have a coffee. It's so different in the States, at least where Elaine is at, where the kids go to jiu-jitsu classes and the parents tag along and they actually do the jiu-jitsu, And I think that's something that really highlighted to me, and something I personally want to take away moving into the future. When I send these two rascals into any type of physical activity, it doesn't necessarily mean I might enjoy it, but I will do my best to partake in it. And that means I had to set myself up in a position where I'm able to stay as active as possible, because in the end of the day, parents, this, like, it's so hard to keep up with a toddler. You're tired, you're gassed out, you're deprived of sleep, especially parents of 2, parents of 3, you're so tired. And then they say, I want to go play this sport, I want to go play that sport. And then you just end up sitting on the sidelines because you're so tired. It's like, if that's, as a kid, if I'm seeing what my parents do, it's like, I'm doing all these things, you're sending me away to do all these things. Like, I would possibly feel like I'm just here to do a sport because I'm just here to kill time. But I feel like if parents are able to spend time together with their kids doing something that the kids like to do, and in the physical activity sense, like get jiu-jitsu, whatever type of sport. Again, I bring jiu-jitsu up because I think that's probably a very friendly family sport. I think the bond is so much stronger. And that is something as a big takeaway for myself going into the future, is like, if I'm going to send my kids to do something, I want to always make sure that whatever my kids are going to be doing, I need to at least partake in it, whatever that might be, right? If I'm sending them off to do something, I need to show up and say, hey, cool, like, you're doing this something, this is new, I'll do it with you, right? And that's a takeaway that I had from Elaine as well. But that's all I have for this week. It is one of the, again, like, I think a lot of the stuff that she said is so applicable to me, but I think it's so far down the track. Not that they're bad. I have to go back and rewatch this episode again and re-listen to the conversation again. That's why I put this in a podcast, maybe 20, 30 years down the line, because there's so many little things in there that I think are so applicable for me when I grow older and older and older. But what is probably very actionable for me now after this conversation is like, hey, she's able to do this at this age, like play, run with the grandkids and all the good stuff. The biggest takeaway that I've got from her is you just need to keep moving, and, like, don't stop moving, literally, like, physically don't stop moving. And to quote Elaine, and I don't know, I'm quoting myself, I quote her, but your body and your brain is a muscle. You use it or you lose it. And I think a lot of adults, not just parents, but adults, as they get into their older stages of life, they don't use certain things. They don't use their muscles. They don't use their brain. That's how you lose all these things. You have to use it or you lose it, especially as we age. The fact of the matter is, if you're listening to this, you're on the decline. You have peaked. More than likely, you have peaked. You are on a decline, and the only way to stop declining is you have to keep using it or you will lose it. I think Elaine was and is still a perfect example of someone who is, you have to use it or you lose it. So that's all I have from today's episode. If you like this episode, share it. Let me know, what did you think from the previous conversation as well? What do you think? Are my reflections accurate? Too far gone? Let me know. I'll be keen to hear your thoughts, and catch you in the next one. Love the support as always, and have a great start to the new year.